All right, everyone. So we are discussing this month. This is October, actually. I'm going to get it right this month. We're discussing Kate Morton's Homecoming. And I want to thank my friend Janet for at first, saying to us, hey, this is a book you guys need to look at.
Did I,
Wouldn't have picked it up.
was that a good one that I picked? That was a
This
good
one I liked a lot. Now I'm going to let
No, but it
everybody
was
else
somebody
decide.
else who told me to read it, I think. I forget who.
I mean, yeah. Well, I will tell you, we'll get started with this right away. I didn't know if I was going to get through it at first because about page 100, I don't know exactly, and you guys can all tell me if you felt the same way. I sort of thought I had this whole thing figured out. So therefore, I'm just reading 600 pages of nonsense, right? Because at the very end, it's going to be revealed that, Polly is the dead kid and blah, blah, blah. There was a big switch and Nora's been a bad girl. Boy, did I have that wrong. By the way, if you haven't read the book, we are going to do it'll be a spoiler tonight, and it will change the impact of what you read. If you haven't read it or up to the end, hopefully everyone has. I gave you a little extra time because I knew it's a dense book. It's very dense. The descriptions, which really do help put you there in that location, in that scene, they do take a lot of time to get through, and there's a lot. It's a very meaty book. Next month is not the same. So this will be, the first one of these in a long while that we've had. So with that, I'm going to start with a poll. I have 3 poll questions tonight. You guys should be very excited. And I think that this poll will help us sort of jump in to an explanation, or at least, some thoughts about this particular book. So with that, I'm going to launch a poll. Let me pull it up here. I think I can do that. Okay. Hold on. Let's see. Gotta get the right book. There we go. Launch. So I'm going to do the first question first, which is, we're only going to do the first question. All right. Can you guys see it yet? Is it there? All right. So the first question is, which woman did you empathize with most in this story? Was it Jess? Was it Polly? Was it Isabel, Nora, or Meg? And Meg would be Meg Summers. She would be the wife of Percy Summers. So is it working? Okay, there you go. Are you guys answering? Is it launched?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's going to let us submit our answers because there's 3 questions.
Yeah. I think
you have to answer them all.
The submit button doesn't light when you only answer one.
Well, that's not very helpful. Okay. Well, let's just do the whole thing then. All right. And then we'll come back and discuss each one as we go. All right. The second one is, who's the greatest villain of the story? You notice I have Nora and Meg as both villains and as empathetic characters. And the last question is, how do you feel about the story's ending? Which I think is going to give you a little more, were you satisfied? I was happy to see that Polly and Jess had mended their relationship, and I'm okay that the secret kind of remained, buried in the past. The second answer is, I'm somewhat satisfied. I'm happy that Polly and Jess are mending their relationships, but I don't think that Isabel got her due. And I don't think and the third one was, I'm not satisfied at all. I don't feel justice was done. It's not fair. Meg should have, and Nora should have been exposed for all their bad doings. And poor Isabel should have been redeemed. And finally, I haven't got a clue how I feel. Not everything in life really turns out the way we'd like it to turn out. And sometimes things are just as they are. So sorry about that. See, you guys are learning about my inability to run these technology things. I probably should have had 3 different questions, 3 different polls then. I'll learn next time. All right, let me go to the beginning and see when everybody's done. Take your time, there's no hurry. So you guys get quizzed right from the beginning. It's like a test. I've got 19 of the 28 of you guys that are on answering, so we'll give it another minute. All right, someone's asking questions. Oh, don't forget, guys, the chat function. Yes, I didn't do the explanations in the beginning. I apologize. So everyone can put their phone on mute if you're not speaking, so that we don't have a lot of background noise. And there's a raise your hand function. You can raise your hand or just wave, and I'll try to let you in. And for those who've just come on, this is a poll that we're doing. I was trying to do just one particular question, but apparently I didn't operate the poll correctly. So we're going to start with the first one on our discussion about which woman did you empathize with most? And then we'll run through the greatest villain of the story, and then we'll run through how you felt about the ending. All right, I've got 9 folks who haven't played the game yet. Oh, thank you, Laura. And your comments. There's a chat function at the bottom. If you don't want to say something out loud, you've got a quick question you want to ask or a comment you want to share, please feel free to use that. All right, is everybody done enough with the polls? If not, let me know. Hi, Pauline, you're relatively new coming in, so I'll give you a minute. Anybody need more time?
Got it.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll if we're ready for that. All right. All right, can everyone see the answers at least to number 1? Jess, by 36%, was the most of you guys empathized most with her, followed by Polly, followed by Isabel, Nora, and somebody liked Meg, which I'm going to get to in a minute. While I have the rest of the poll results up, we'll just go to the other ones really quick. Who was the greatest villain? I think this is very interesting as well. 11 of you said Meg. Another bunch of you said Nora. Of course, Thomas was in this as well as Percy. And finally, we'll look at you guys are pretty evenly split on whether you're satisfied or not satisfied. So we'll find that an interesting discussion. Okay, so you get a sense. Let's talk to people who first, let's go back to the first question. Which woman did you empathize with most? And so I'm going to stop sharing the results so that we can all talk. I can see you guys. Is that good? All right, so someone who empathized with Jess the most, please kind of give me, someone just volunteer, what was it about Jess that made her the most empathetic character for you, that you had the most sympathy for, you could really relate to her well? Anybody. Janet, is that you? No, who? Someone raise their hand? Don't be shy, I'll pick on you. Jean. You're on mute, dear.
Wouldn't undo. I think for me, I felt as though when I finally got to the end of the book, that she was caught in the middle of so many things that she didn't even know she was caught in the middle of. And that every time she turned around, she was finding something else out about somebody she thought she knew, trusted, and was, always bouncing off yet another story and another fake story or another questionable issue, or learning something that she didn't know. I mean, she played in that attic for how many years and never knew that there was this hidden room. I mean, the whole bit. It's just, for me, I felt like everybody else had a piece of the story that they kind of knew about or suspected they knew about. And she really was the one who came into it kind of blind from the beginning.
Well, and also, what about her own struggle with, I hate to say, and please, anybody, we're all older except for maybe a couple of folks like Avery and Savannah, but her own struggle with her own quote midlife crisis. I don't really want to, she's just turning 40, but just think about women who are just turning 40, who've never had children, who, she's not married and she's struggling with whether she wants that or not. So she's also struggling with, her perceptions of what motherhood is. And, she's got that sort of coming of age issue going on as well, right? I mean, and she's now learning that not only was her mother not the greatest mother, but Nora wasn't the greatest mother. And, this relative from the past who seems to be an awful mother. So maybe she's affirming to herself, hey, maybe motherhood's just not for the Turner Bridges family. Maybe I should just, maybe it's best I didn't have children. I mean, she's probably, I don't know if she really went into those feelings or not, but I sort of had that sort of sense that she was struggling with some of the decisions she's made, and then maybe could use what's happening around her to justify those decisions. I don't know if anybody else thought that about her.
It just felt like every time she learned something, she thought, wow, this completely goes against everything I thought I knew about everybody else. But she always felt like she was missing pieces about herself. She didn't have a close relationship with her mother. So she really didn't know her as a mother. I mean, there were just so many pieces for her that were missing.
So do you think this filled those in for her in a positive way, or how do you think that affected her?
I think it filled it in for her in the beginning, whether it was positive or not. I think in some ways it may have been positive. I think in some ways the piece after the story ended would have been the question as to how it went in the future. How did they reconcile the relationships and their knowledge of their relationships with Nora? What did they do with all of that? We never got into that. So
Right.
I'd say in the immediate, it probably gave her some closure and satisfaction, but I think it also opened up a lot more questions than she knew that she didn't have answers for.
Right. What about Polly? Did anyone have who's one of my Polly girls? And Polly is my dog, one of my dogs. So anyone have thoughts on that? Oh, come on. Who voted for Polly? Who was a Polly person? No one's going to volunteer. Laura, who did you vote for? I'm going to pick on you. Oh, never mind. I got Pauline jumping in. Pauline? You guys are all on mute. I'm so sorry. You have to unmute yourself. I don't think I can do that from
Take
Mark.
Pauline.
There you go. Pauline, can you unmute? Yeah.
Unmute. Okay,
There
can
you
you hear
go.
me?
Yes.
All right, thank you. No, Polly, I felt kind of sorry for because she was a victim from birth, quite honestly, and until the end of the story. She never was understood. She never knew who she was. So my heart broke for her, and I felt at the end of the book, Jess finally could appreciate who her mother was. And I felt like there was love that was kind of being born there that was late to be born.
I agree. I felt, she'd been robbed and used, if you think about it. Really used.
Exactly. Yeah, she was trying to do the best thing based on how Nora manipulated her, right?
Mhm.
And then just trying to make sure that Jess had everything she needed, and she sacrificed herself and her relationship with her daughter in the end.
Agreed. Leslie, some thoughts on that, or thoughts in general?
So I wanted to mention about Polly. I actually was kind of angry with the author for introducing her when she did, as, kind of bringing her forward to have her own thoughts and perspective and actions in when she was, starting to engage back with Jess and understanding in terms of Nora's death. But then I started to like her more toward, as it came closer and they started pulling all the pieces together. But I really wasn't interested in hearing more about what Polly's perception was. And maybe that was colored by the way she had been portrayed in terms of, the way she brought up Jess and kind of had excused her and divorced herself from the whole, idea of motherhood. So it shifted over time, but at first when she was introduced, I was not happy with her as a character.
So you would have liked her to have been introduced earlier or in a better light from the beginning?
So
both?
almost immediately you had the perceptions and thoughts of, Jess and what she was thinking, but you didn't have other people kind of starting with their original thoughts from the onset. If it had been a more balanced portrayal, I think throughout, I would have liked that better.
And I lost somebody. Debbie, were you up here in the beginning?
Yes, I was. But I had similar thoughts to everyone else. I really did not like Polly in the beginning. I thought, oh, what a terrible mother, blah, blah, blah. But I grew to really like her and saw her as a victim. And then as a mother myself, I felt really sorry for her that she missed out on her daughter's childhood and that relationship with her mother and her daughter both.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, Polly was probably, if you look at in terms of empathetic people, next to Isabella. I had voted, and we'll get to it in a minute, as Isabella. Polly really was manipulated from the beginning, if you think about it, I felt really sad about, how Nora held such control over her, especially when she met that man who was Kennedy-esque, it just felt it was a very sad, she was a very tragic character, I think, in this book. And I'm not quite sure I liked the ending either in terms of Polly's redemption. I didn't feel, satisfied that she didn't, get something more. But then again, the question would be, what was the more? I don't know what that would have looked like either. So it's just, an interesting, terribly sad, like I said, tragic sort of situation, but she did get an opportunity, and she has, of course, to sort of connect with her daughter and have a relationship with her going forward, which I thought was, was the right thing to do. What about Isabella? Anyone on Isabella? Laura, I can see you're going to raise your hand. Go ahead, Laura.
Holy moly.
Right?
Take a woman out of society and, it sounded like she had a wonderful upbringing, and she'd take her pregnant with 3 children and put her in this humongous house in the middle of nowhere and then leave her there. She had it horrible. I mean, she put up with it, but I think had she lived, she would have left. I really do. I think she would have.
She was leaving, as I recall. She was leaving.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a while since I read this. So give me a minute. But yeah, I think that's what her plan was. She was escaping before, her life was cut short, unfortunately. Sarah, your thoughts on Isabel before I jump in with mine.
Yeah, I thought she was the most transplanted character. She didn't have any roots or didn't really belong in South Australia or wherever it was, and very isolated. And then they killed her. And she, she had big losses in her early life as well with her parents and so forth. So yeah, she didn't get a chance.
You know what made me, and she would have been my most empathetic character, and it's really not so, yes. And I agree with both of you and anyone who felt this in the beginning. Her whole life when she was alive was tragic, the way she was just transplanted and dropped by this guy, this sort of a rake of a guy who went out and found the world and swept her off her feet. But I felt most sorry for her legacy and for her, posthumous position. I mean, just imagine every letter that you wrote, every diary entry you made being twisted to turn you into a woman who has murdered your entire family. And I have, 4 of my own and 2 stepchildren. I can't imagine if, something horrible happened to all of us and it was twisted in a way in which it was twisted for her, and that legacy remained. I mean, that's what I felt so bad about. So, she might have been the best mother in the world, but they will always remember her in this book anyway, as being that killer, that murder-suicide woman. I felt so bad for her memory, for her legacy. And that's why, for me, you know, even though I love this book, I didn't feel satisfied. I didn't feel like justice was served because this woman, no one's going out to try to redeem and repair her reputation and her what she left behind. You know, she's going to be forever known as that that woman that, you know, off their family. I just thought that was terribly,
Yeah.
terribly tragic.
Yeah, there could have been something about where Jess got something printed as a addendum to Daniel Miller's book, right? And
Right.
you didn't get that.
Where's that epilogue that said that? You know, I wanted to read
Exactly,
that.
we
I
need
wanted
that.
Marcus Summers to read the epilogue to Daniel Miller's book that was, yes, that's that. I was looking for that. And that's one of the questions I'm going to have when we get to it, when we can ask it now. I want to ask Kate Morton why she didn't go there. Now, as an aside, guys, I had a conversation with Carol Fitzgerald of the Book Reporter. I'm on her, I think her blog next week on her podcast. And before and after where we talked about the book club, she's very fascinated by this. And she said that she will get for sure, if we want to have a couple questions that we want to send to Kate Morton and have Kate respond to those questions. And to me, that would be one. And I would like for you guys to submit others if you have them. I won't get them tonight, but you can put them in the chat or you know, send them to me via email. What questions would you like to ask Kate Morton about certain decisions that she made on this book? And that to me was one. Why wasn't there an epilogue? Why didn't we get closure? I didn't feel there was closure. There might have been closure for Jess in Jess's world. There might have been closure for Polly in Polly's world because they didn't know Isabel, right? They just knew Nora. But why isn't there closure? I felt a little cheated by that. But then again, you know, life cheats you. And so that's why I sort of put the question as I did towards you, which is this really just a reflection of life? And when we go home on our own homecomings, you know, there are wrongs that are done that never get corrected. And maybe that's what the point of this was in terms of how she wrote. And we'll talk about it in a minute.
Well, that's where I felt empathy for Jess. She never got information about her father, but
right.
But to go forward, and she was the youngest, she has the most forward to go. And Kate Morton had set up perfectly. She had a person from America that could have been a part of that in the epilogue. So, yeah.
Is Eileen on tonight? Because this is a good question for her too. Eileen, are you on tonight? Yell at me if you are. I can't see you. I got two screens going. Any other? There's another author on tonight. Is Diana on? My question is that oftentimes with editors, we are given this sort of edict that you have a bunch of strings, right? And all these strings have to connect at the end. And then you have these contracts with readers. And that you should not leave these strings kind of just dangling. And that was one, Sarah, you know, Polly's father, Jess never learned the identity of her father. We did as a reader, but usually, you know, the protagonist kind of learns these things that we learn. Otherwise, the protagonist is kind of duped. Same thing goes with, you know, there's a number of those contracts, you know, that were sort of undone. And I was just curious if you guys found that a problem or if you thought that was okay. Did you feel like there was these unknown things that were left hanging as secrets, or is that intentional? Anybody have any thoughts on that?
No, I think there were a lot of unknowns. Even Polly's lover, like, who was it that, yeah, I mean, they said Kennedy, but really was it? Or, yeah, there was, to me, we're still left in the dark.
Yeah. Denise?
Well, yeah, I felt like there were a lot of things left hanging, but then again, I think of how families are and how this family was and all the secrets, you know, right from the get-go. And sometimes I like it. I mean, I like it that not all my questions as a reader are answered. But that's the kind of reader I am. You know, it's kind of like, well, no, was he Jess's dad? Or, but yeah, you know, so like sometimes I just like to go there by myself and see if I can figure it out. But
or write your own ending, or write your own.
right. I definitely empathize with Izzy though. Oh my.
Yeah.
And especially as I found out more, but I couldn't comprehend, yeah, how a mother would do that. And yeah, but there again, that's my whole families keep secrets,
They do.
you know, and whether it's right or wrong, yeah, horrible, horrible, but yeah, they had a lot of secrets. So
So the next character, and it's going to lead us straight into the villain, in terms of empathetic characters. Oh, I guess I had Nora. Didn't I have Nora? Did anybody empathize with Nora? I think that we had a couple, didn't we? If anybody empathized with Nora, real quick. No one's raising their hand. We want to talk about Nora as a empathetic character or a villain. We can do both. Let's go to Nora in general. How many of you guys then, if you didn't find her empathetic, how many of you found her as being the most villainous person in this particular book? Who was one of those? Anybody? Okay, Kathy, what you got?
Okay, well, in the beginning, I thought she was this lovely old lady.
Right?
You know, everybody just loved her. But as the story went on, you found out, you know, what she did and the secrets that she kept. She had a secret room and everything. It was just, she loved her granddaughter so much, but she kept this whole part of her life away from her. And then she kept her mother away from her. And
Yeah,
that's,
this was I mean, in my mind, I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist. Where's my psychologist? Is Teresa on? You know, she was definitely a what do you call that? A codependency kind of thing going on with this woman. She was manipulative and controlling in a lot of ways, and she thought it was the best way, but really tough. Jean.
I think one of the interesting things for me was that if you'd asked me these questions in the first 4 or 5 chapters, and then ask me in the middle, and then ask me after I finished page 544 or whatever it was, I think my answers would really have differed, because in the beginning, I too was like, oh, it's this old woman, and she lived a tough life, and all of the tragedy that she survived. And then as things started to unfold, I started to go like, wait, she contrived so many of these things. She twisted her sister-in-law's emotions and presentation to say, well, maybe she was presenting with some, what we now call postpartum, and these, you know, so she was really narcissistically in control of everybody, as though they were all puppets on strings. So I obviously didn't see that in the beginning, but by the end I thought, wow, this was not the woman I thought she was. So I think I felt that with a lot of the characters. They kind of morphed over time.
Yeah, I became to where I disliked Nora. I mean, I was like, you know, every time there would be a scene with Jess going and talking about poor Nora. I'm like, poor Nora, are you kidding me? Can't you see what's going on? I wanted to shake her and say, stop. This woman is, you know, she's not good. I mean, that's the way I felt. Now, I don't know if that was the reaction anybody else had, but I really began to, you know, pretty much she was probably the one that I disliked the most. At the end of the book, I found her the most villainous because I think she impacted the most lives. Well, maybe not, I guess. We'll talk about it in a minute because we're going to get to Meg next. But anybody else had some thoughts about Nora, either good or bad, besides, you know, the ones that have spoken so far? Anyone? Janet's being awfully quiet. I'm just saying.
It's been a long time since I read the book. I read it a long time ago when it first came out. And so I'm only now remembering all of it as you guys are talking. Yeah. Nora, I mean, yeah, she was, the thing is that what it reminds me of a lot is you know, my own mother, who never wanted to tell me who my father was. And the reason she gave me was because he was Italian, and she was afraid that if she told me that he was Italian, that I wouldn't want to be Jewish anymore. And I thought that was the most ridiculous reason in the whole freaking world. And all I got from her before she died was a name. I've never been able to find him or any of his family. She died with all of that, you know. And so yeah, secrets can be pretty heartbreaking. But that's the way life is sometimes, because people are selfish. And if they get hurt and they don't want someone else to, know something because of that hurt, they can hurt a lot of people because of that. So yeah,
I'm so sorry, Jan. That's very sad.
kind of like happens, this like in real life, kind of shit like that happens, and it can be devastating, but life goes on. So yeah, you haven't gotten a last question, or was it that the satisfied one? That's the last question.
Yes.
Yeah, so it is unsatisfying, but yeah, it's the way life is sometimes.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Janet. I think Laura, you're next. Yes, Laura.
So sorry, Janet. Wow.
I know it's terrible.
I don't think any good comes from keeping secrets, but it's so hard to tell them. So hard, At what age do you tell them? How much do you tell them? How much can they absorb? I think everyone in this chat would have one thing that was a secret that was kept from them that they eventually found out, and most likely the hard way. And to take it upon yourself to say something, I know something about my family that very few people know. But it's not my place to tell it. But should I tell it? So as I just said, that, you struggle with that. You struggle with knowledge and things that people should know, but oh no, now they're too old. Now I can't tell them now, it'll destroy them. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Interesting. And so with that, I'm going to lead into Meg, who was probably, in my opinion, the most unsuspecting character, unless somebody in the room saw it from the beginning. If you guys, somebody saw it in the beginning, let me know, because I'm going to like, okay, you get a gold star. But to me, the most unsuspecting character of all this. I mean, I felt empathy for her in the beginning, because, her boys and being drugged into all this, and, her son having lost, I think it was Matilda was the girl. I remember my names now. It's been a while since I read it. But, and in the end, I was boiled over. I just couldn't believe that Meg had been the one that was responsible for all this pain and suffering. So anybody have some thoughts about Meg and her character and how the author led us down this path? And by the way, did anybody else go back through and read half of it, a part of it again, like I did, to see what I missed and how I missed it? I mean, I was not happy that I missed so much, and it was so terribly subtle. But it's there. She did a good job.
Yeah, she did.
Anyone on Meg? You guys are being so quiet. Yes, Pauline. You're on mute, sweetie. We can't hear you. I hate that mute button.
I hate that mute button. Okay, sorry. I think what the author did so well is she created so many layers of people, right? So that, you're not just black and white. You're not just evil or good. And so, Meg got presented as being this, loving homemaker, caring for her children, making sure, everything is going to be great for them, just like we all do. But I love how Kate made these layers. Again, going to Nora, tons of layers. Even Polly, tons of layers. And I think the author just did a great job in producing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about Percy? Anybody have thoughts about dear old Percy? Okay, first I got to ask, I should have put this up. Who saw it coming? I mean,
Nobody.
Nobody, right? I have to tell you, just from a structure standpoint, usually your protagonist or somebody very, very important is introduced in that very first chapter, right? I mean, and so I kept wondering, after we had this whole big, long, I don't know how many pages it was, of Percy's life, Percy, his relationship with Meg, and he finding the bodies and being called back in, the whole Percy story. And then Percy disappeared, right? It becomes Jess, it becomes Nora, it becomes Isabel. And I'm like, I don't know how far it was. I'm gonna have to look back and see if I marked it, but it was a long way in. I'm going, what happened to Percy? What the flip is she doing? This woman, this author doesn't know what, I mean, I'm like, I don't get it. Why in the world is Percy front and center and then he disappears? I mean, and I even told my husband, I said, I think Janet Palma's lost her mind. I mean, this book, I'm ready to throw it out because I mean, where's Percy? And then it's like, boom, we find out that Percy's having this affair with Isabella. And at first I thought it was the gardener or whatever his name was, and I can't remember his name anyway. And then when it was Percy, then it began, then I'm like, okay, there's a big, come to Jesus moment about to happen right here really soon with this book. And I just didn't know where it was going. I never would have pegged Meg. I thought it was one of the sons. Any thoughts on how she developed Percy? Again, thank you, Pauline, for the comment about the layers and how he came back into this. Any impressions? How did you feel about him? Did you feel angry about this guy? I mean, were you empathetic to him at all? Any thoughts on how you felt about Percy, or what he felt when he goes and he sees Isabella and her family dead on that riverbank, and they're just not any old body. I mean, this is his lover, right? How do you think that went down? Savannah, I'm gonna pick on you. She's like, oh no, don't.
I actually haven't gotten to the end of the book. So
oh no, we just ruined it for you.
No. I'm the type of person who will read the end first and then read the whole book because I can't stand the suspense. So this is great. But I haven't gotten to the end to give a clear picture of how I feel about him.
All right. Anybody? Barbara. Who wants to answer? I'm gonna pick on you if you don't. Start with the mute button. It's all the way to the left.
Okay, now I got it.
Okay.
I was using my finger instead of the keyboard. It was a very complex book, but I think a lot was hidden. I was just surprised at the end when I found out that Percy and Isabella was having an affair, but you didn't know that. And then Meg comes in, and I think she just loses it and kills everybody. But she don't, the whole time, and to the very end, it's all Isabella's fault for the kid.
Right.
And she was very innocent. I mean, every mom goes through certain crises, and her husband was away. She was trying to survive. But I think Meg was a villain just as much as Noor. And I think Percy was caught in the middle of all of it. He probably had no idea any of this would happen.
Yeah. Well, it's like the consequences, right? He thought it was an innocent affair, and never in his wildest dreams did he think his philandering was going to end up, causing the death of all these people. And neither did Meg, right? Meg, her only intention was to off Isabella, not the children. But she didn't even think that through either. If you think about it, she was so angry, she's just going to kill Isabella. What was going to happen to those children? Whether or not Isabella, her children lived or died, they had no one. They would have no parent because Thomas was gone. What was going to happen? There was no thinking through of their actions. They just reacted. Like many people do, like many of us do. We just react and make a decision, or don't even make a decision. We just react, and the consequences snowball into these horrible, dire situations. Honestly, I think it was brilliantly done. And like I said, I didn't see it coming, and I usually see it coming, which made me mad, but also I thought it was great that I got surprised. Pauline.
Oh, am I unmuted?
No, you're good. You're good.
No, okay, great. Okay, good. No, so Megan, in a way, as I'm just hearing you guys have this discussion, comes across to me as a little bit of a psychopath in the fact that, like, she took the baby in, loved that baby, but then when Percy says, we got to give the baby back, she doesn't flinch. So, you're asking the question about what she thought about what's going to happen to all of Isabel's children. I don't know, is there a little bit of that psychopathic thing that she doesn't really care? she just needed to get Meg out of the way. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into
Or she
that,
was gonna
but-
maybe, or is she gonna bring all the children in? I mean, you.
Yeah, because everybody likes big families, right? They want to have their legacy, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that could be it too. But the way she just was quickly to give up the baby, that just was odd to me, because she was just, you know, really nurturing it and bringing it into her home. And when Percy said, no, we got to give it back, she didn't hesitate.
Well,
And I think
she would have been
even-
found out. I mean, in my mind, if she didn't give it back in some way, I mean, then why would she have it? I mean, she's going to implicate
Yeah,
her
where'd the baby
son.
come from?
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Laura, thoughts?
How did he not look in that bassinet that was hanging in the tree? You know, that would be my first place that I would look. Is the baby okay? You know, you saw everybody else, but I would have checked that, but the baby was there and he didn't even look. I thought that was.
I should go back and look. Did he focus on Isabella? I mean, I know he looked at Matilda, or no, not Matilda, the little girl that was the tomboy.
Evie?
What was her name?
Evie or
Evie,
Melinda?
yeah. Evie was the one he saw first with the ants, right? But I wonder if he, and I can't remember if she set it up this way, if he then focused only on Isabella, the sadness and the grief he felt for Isabella, and then everything else is oblivious. Maybe, I don't know. I can't remember if she wrote it that way or not. But you're right. You would think that he would check, but then it wouldn't have been a story. Yeah, the whole Percy character, again, like I said, I was pretty shocked by it. And I think there was a clue of it in the beginning. Yes, Leslie.
I was going to say, I think when you get to the end and realize the role that Meg played in the death of Isabella and the children, right? And then for her to be so happy to have that baby who was clearly Isabel's and Percy's baby, you know, I don't know how she could have wanted to nurture and bring that baby into her family. I mean, she even said, I think at one point, oh yeah, she resembles the boy so much when they were babies.
Unless her desire for a daughter was so strong, that the daughter she didn't have, and her guilt associated with what she had done in some capacity offset that. You know, I could redeem myself by saving one.
Yeah, maybe so.
I'm making, I mean, I don't know, it'd be great we could ask the author. That might be a question we should put on our list of questions that explain to us how your logic behind Megan's reaction with the baby and why Percy didn't look in the basket. So what about in terms of who else did I have? Thomas. We talked about Thomas Turner, the husband. I mean, just a big downer. I didn't see any redeeming qualities about that at all. One of the questions I had, and I really quite couldn't get my head around it, was why Nora felt that he was such a great brother. I never really got a real good sense of that, even when we were inside of that her head a bit of, she had him on this pedestal. And I couldn't quite get it. Anybody else have that reaction? Yeah. Jennifer. Yes. Janine.
Hi, my children are 15 and a half years apart, and my son is almost 40, and our daughter is like 24 now. And she worships him, because he was always like the fun uncle. They were that far apart in age, and he could just take her off by himself and go to the beach or whatever they would do together. And I don't know, that's real. I still see that, even though they're both grown up now. So just to put that out there, when I saw the age difference of 10 years old, that's immediately where I went. Our children are that far apart in age, and it's probably going to remain that way for the rest of their lives. He's always going to be like the funnest uncle in the world, but he's actually her brother because he's just a different generation than her. So I don't know. That's how I took it.
Yeah, I wonder if that also, actually, you think about that. my husband's oldest brother was kind of that way, I think, for them, when he came in much older. George could do no wrong. Not that he did any wrong, but just in general. I wonder if Kate Morton has an older brother like that or something in her life like that she modeled that on, because it was interesting. I had that question. Thank you so much for sharing that, Janine. That was helpful. Pauline?
And for me, it was more of Nora's building a facade of what her world was, knowing the events that happened, in order for her to believe this fantasy life that she had and hide and bury the secret, that was, to me, why she just felt like, he was great, because that's how she had to present him in her fairy tale.
Got it. So you're back to now you're on sociopath. Or
I know, I'm sorry.
Or narcissist. Oh, she's the narcissist, right? I'm trying to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then I guess as we move through these questions, the last one I had was, the book's ending. And the last full question anyway was satisfied, not so satisfied, very sort of somewhat not, and then I don't know. I just feel like this is just life. Anybody that was really, really, really satisfied and okay with the secrets remaining secret and felt good about that ending, just give us your thoughts, or anybody has any other opinions. If it's somewhat, Janet, no, whatever, just jump in with your thoughts. And Anna, did you have something you want? Diana, did you have something you wanted to add? Are you unmuted? I keep looking at you for some reason, Diana, and I think that you're raising your hand, but you're not. Anybody have any thoughts? Sarah, yes?
I was very satisfied with the ending and how she, wrapped everything up in the traits that the people had, including Meg and why the death happened and so forth. But I had trouble with how we got to the ending and how she had so many names and generations, and I kept getting everybody all mixed up. And then we'd move to a different time period, and when she released the information that she did, that we needed to solve the mystery, and that part didn't make sense with the ending. But once I thought about it back to the beginning, she did set it up so that I thought it worked really well.
So from a structure perspective, you didn't like the way it was structured.
Right.
Yeah. I did when she introduced the Polly character. I'm not sure who said that. Maybe it was Debbie. But whenever it came in, that I felt it was sort of abrupt, right? And I'm like, why do we care? Why are we going back through this? So yeah, I felt that way too, from a structure perspective. I don't know where it was going. I almost felt myself like skipping pages, saying, okay, whatever. Get back to the story, because it didn't hold me long enough. I'm not sure if anybody else felt that way. But then again, she jammed so much in that back end. I mean, where it just kept coming like this, and you're just one reveal after another. Was really, it sort of made it worth the whole effort, I guess, to get there. Anybody else in terms of how you felt about the book that ended, that wants to comment? No?
Well, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Because I've never written a book. I don't really think I could ever write a fictional book, but did the editors say, like, you know what, we're at 500 pages, close it? I mean, is there pressure on Kate Morton to like throw everything out?
There's all kinds of questions like that. Yes. I mean, this is a big book. I mean, it's pretty thick, and it's not just that it's thick, it's dense. I mean, it's really small typed. It's laid out in a way which is a lot. I mean, I bet you this is 100 and almost 200,000 words, which is a big book. It's a very big book. So yes, there are editorial pressures to do that. At least, but maybe she doesn't get them. I mean, Kate Quinn doesn't
Except
get
if you're
them.
Ken Follett and you can write 800 pages.
Yeah, unless you're people like that, or Kristen Hannon, or they can get away with Stephanie Dre. But I don't know. Who is her publisher? Did I even look at that? The letter, it depends on the editing house, but there could have been some of that, yes, because it gets too long. She's marrying her books. Yeah. I think they're HarperCollins, aren't they? I think Mariner's HarperCollins. So yeah, maybe. What about anybody else want to talk about the ending, how it affected them at all? Because I was not satisfied. I wanted poor Isabella's name to be cleared. I wanted Nora not to be tagged as a this wonderful, great philanthropist. I wanted her, baby robber, cradle robber, or whatever you want to call it. Jean.
For me, it was like watching a movie for 2 hours. And at 1 hour and 58.5 minutes, they tell you who the killer is. And then they roll credits. And you're like, I have so many questions. There's so much that left hanging. If there had been, somebody mentioned before, if they had done, Jess was a writer. She was a journalist. If she had started to, even if she had said she was starting to work on an addendum for the addendum, or she was going to write her own book about this whole experience, because most of the key characters, she could change names, but were deceased. So, I mean, I just kind of felt like I fell off the end of the earth when I got to the end and I went, oh, it's over. Like, okay. I didn't almost didn't know what to do with some of it at that point, because it wasn't tied together, even in an ugly bow. Didn't have to be pretty, but
yeah, Rita made an interesting comment. It was during COVID. She had to keep putting characters in because she was, I'm telling you, it's her COVID book. Everyone's got one. Mine got cut to shreds, which I did it justice, but this one didn't. I agree. I did feel, I do like the settings, when you get immersed, but there were some points in which, I don't remember, we were talking about birds or we're talking about a bush or something, where I was like, okay, it's a bush. Can we just get past the description of the bush and let's just get to the action? Now that might just be, my ADD brain, or, the millennials, have much shorter attention spans these days. I mean, John Steinbeck would never make it in today's market, I'm telling you, because it's not allowed. But I thought there was a lot of that kind of stuff, which was lovely for a bit, but then after a while you kind of go, okay, let's move on to it. But I would have liked to have seen more, like you said, maybe a little longer sort of in terms of those reveals that went, just so that we could, like you said, it didn't end so abruptly. Sarah?
Yeah, I agree with the bush. The purple flowered bush she brought up 8 times. I went back and counted the Kindle.
If you're counting the number of times, it's a bad thing.
Exactly.
I have a question, I guess before we leave this topic, and that is, or this book in general, is the title itself. I was a little, I guess, there's a lot of emphasis on the title when you look at the reviews and you look at a lot of the commentary and you look at a lot of the book club discussions that are out there, and what she meant by it. Any thoughts on if you thought this was a good title for this book, or the title should have been something else? Not that I want to ask you what the title should have been, but if you have any thoughts on the title, did it have a appropriate meaning for you?
No.
Kathy, Jennifer, Nell, anybody? Kathy's on mute. Yes, Kathy.
I just kept trying to put the title with what was happening, and sometimes it fit, sometimes it didn't. I mean, yeah, she came home to see her grandmother. I'm trying to think of where else it fit. I don't know. I don't know that it necessarily did fit.
Yeah, I think it kind of got lost a little bit, in that, as I think someone said, maybe it was Jean, I would have liked to have seen that article that she was writing for her paper, move to, more of an article about the secrets that families keep. I think the idea of secrets would have been kind of cool in here some way, but I don't know that I got it as much as, to me, Homecoming feels more like a folksy kind of, you go back in a different kind of way. This didn't feel that way to me.
It almost
I think
applies
there's
more.
a little bit of an, oops.
Go ahead, Janet, go ahead.
I think there's kind of a little bit of an irony to that title. I mean, yeah, she came home because someone died and she had to come home. And so in a way it was a homecoming, but there's this like whole bunch of garbage, that comes out because of it. So, I mean, I can't think of any other title that I would give this story. Yeah, I mean, if anybody else can come up with something better, um, I, I think it's appropriate. You know?
I think it was the rosy path she wanted to lead us down.
Ah,
Yeah,
She let us
yeah.
in thinking it's going
That's
to
why I
be this
think-
Hallmark kind of homecoming, and then it
Yeah,
all
that's why
falls
I
apart.
that's why I
Right.
think that's why I say it's kind of an ironic kind of, you know,
Right.
title. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
you think of the homecoming, you know, like Hallmark, you know, the
Yeah,
story.
exactly.
And this is anything but a Hallmark story.
And
So
it turns into a Lifetime movie real quick.
exactly.
Well, I kind of wondered if it was more related to her as the author and her experience going to Australia to write it. Maybe it's more meaningful for her as a homecoming. And I also kind of felt, Sharon, I know you didn't like the descriptions of the birds and the trees and the
I
but
did a couple times. I did in the beginning, but like I said, it kind of
Yeah.
wore on me.
but I wonder if that was meaningful for her writing it, going back after all that time to Australia and being exposed to where she'd grown up and kind of embracing some of the things that she missed from her past. I don't know. It just seems more relative to her as an author than it did to the
And it
book.
did a good job of putting us there who have not been to Australia or not, you know, not seen it. But
Right.
also Rita made an interesting point earlier that it was COVID. So she had lots of time to weave those in. Denise, you have your hand up, dear.
Well, you know, I thought it was an appropriate title. At first, I thought of Jess, but at the end, I thought it was a homecoming for Polly. So at the end, I was like, oh, it's about Polly and being able to go see where, you know, her real family, you know, try and get some of that history. So yeah, so I switched kind of my thinking, but yeah, at first I was like, homecoming. Okay, well, Jess is going home. But after I read the whole story, I'm like, oh, I get it. So that's just me.
Well, and I think that's what she wanted you to do too, right? Was change your thoughts, change your thinking, change your impressions. I mean, this book was a lot about that, right? The layers as they peeled back. You thought you were going and you saw Percy one way, you saw Meg one way, you saw Nora one way, and then you see this. Janet, you did a great job of saying that. This sort of rose-colored place down this little garden path, and you end up the farther you journey upon it, the more difficult and enmeshed you become into the madness that is what has been woven by all those secrets that were kept. So it's an interesting, yeah, it really does become a homecoming for Polly. When you said once she buys Halcyon, she bought it, right? They did get it. Is that correct? I think so. Yes. Jennifer, you have a question?
The homecoming.
Yes.
I know. Title right near the end of the book, just I think it is. I'm sorry, I literally just finished the book. Says something that like home is the opposite of home is alone. So people, when they say you're homesick, what you are is you just want to not feel alone. So, and at the end of the book, they've gone back to the little town and Polly's run off on her errand, and I think she's dug up Kurt, who she realizes is her, I guess, half brother. And she really hit it off with all of them, and they're all going to get together later, and now they're going to have all this family. So they are coming home, and I think Polly's going to buy it, but that's just me.
Okay. Well, you're right, though, in a way, she's coming home to a family that she didn't know she had, which is, you know, there is some goodness at the end, and there are some warm feelings. Like I said, I just felt so sorry for Isabella, but who remains the evil, murderous mother. So with that, guys, thank you guys for reading this one. I know it was a big one. And I don't like to pick the great big ones if you guys haven't got time to get through them. But I think it was worth it. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. I thought I had it all figured out, and I didn't, which was an interesting way of going. Yes, I know Janine's asking the next book. So there's two things going on. One is the next book, and it's a local author. And so you guys all know that I broke my leg back in May, had been laid up for most of the summer. I try not to let you guys see my crutches in the background. And so this was given to me by a friend of mine. It's a local author here. She lives in Georgetown, and she's written a couple books. It's called Loot by Tanya James. And she will be joining us on the 28th of November. And it is a book about, it's thin, see, not very big. But it's a book about a boy in Abbas who is a carver making toys and gets taken from his family in 1796 in India and is taken to the palace to make toys. And this toy, this tiger becomes, which is a real tiger, an automated tiger, you know, that moves kind of a thing, very intricate, becomes like the prized thing that is taken from the palace when they are looted and robbed by marauders and in the war. And it's a story of how he gets and tries and tracks and gets this loot, this toy back and other things that have been pilfered by the English, the British, from the Indian culture. So it really goes into colonialism a little bit. It's a different genre for us. It's historical fiction, obviously, but we don't really talk about India and colonialism and topics like this. And I really enjoyed reading it. So I think you guys will too. Called Loot. And it's not a book that, you know, is one that you normally know about. And the book club kit, Avery just got it to me, and I will get it out to you by Monday, I hope. I'm a little busy. You guys know I'm on tour. I will be in Stanton, Virginia tomorrow night. If you live in the Stanton area, come see me. If you live in Norfolk or Newport News, I'll be there on Saturday and Sunday. I will be in, where am I going to be next? I'm trying to remember. Help me. I'm going to be in Winchester on the 18th of November. I'm going to be, Philadelphia. Thank you. Philadelphia on the 11th of November from 7 to 9 in Mount Airy area. If you guys anybody lives there, you have friends there, let them know. And Kathy, you have a question, you can go ahead and jump in here, dear.
It's not necessarily a question, but I just wanted you to know that I'm on Goodreads and I have won some books, but not many. Guess what book I won? What are the odds? Veil of Doubt.
You did? Oh my goodness. Yay for you.
20 copies, 9,500 people, and I won one of the 20 copies.
Congratulations.
That is so cool.
And that's the second thing I was going to tell you is that I'm going to be announcing a couple dates. I refuse. I'm like one of these people. I don't put my own artwork up in my own house, and I don't do my own books in my own book club. I just think that's sort of, I don't know, that just feels weird. This feels, ugh. But I'm going to do one for you guys, and I'm going to do a couple others, book club or just book discussions. We'll do it via Zoom. I'll announce a date in December. If you haven't read the book yet, I'd love for you to read it. I think you'll like it. The reviews have been outstanding. I'm extremely excited how happy it is. It's so much different than Mask of Honor. If you read Mask of Honor, it's not at all like that. I don't know if Laura, you've read the book. You want to give your 2 cents worth on it, you certainly may. I know Rita has read it too. Letting everybody know, don't tell them the ending. Do not read the author's notes first. Savannah, do not read the ending first. You'll ruin the whole thing. Laura.
The twists and turns in the character development and the ending. I think I said a little earlier, there are very few books that I give a 5 a year. Every year you give the 5 as a rating. There are very few I give a 5. This book I gave a 5 that we just read, and I gave Veil of Doubt a 5.
Thank you. I appreciate all of you
And
guys.
my friends are reading it now, and they seem even more impressed than me. Because maybe because I know you, I don't know, but
you're a little tough, you know. Well, the other thing is I am doing book clubs as well. I've got one in Creighton Farms on the 8th of November here locally, and I'll do them via Zoom. So just let me know if you guys have a book club that you're in elsewhere that, you know, if you would like me to participate, I'd be happy to do that and talk about the book. But it really is important if we do a book club discussion that everyone has read it first, because I will spoil it. And if it's spoiled, then it's not the same book. As Jean knows, and Rita knows, and Laura knows, anybody else who's read it knows. I have just a little update as well. I have my new book, which I've titled Grays of Truth. is due to the publisher tomorrow. God help me. You know what I'm doing tonight. And they're planning to get that out next fall. So, and it's in a similar vein as Veil It Out. It's a similar kind of murder mystery sort of book. So let you guys know. With that, I've kept you 7 minutes longer than I should have, and I apologize, but I look forward to
Gotta go. Gotta pick up my dog.
yes,
Happy
see you on the
Thanksgiving.
28th of November. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Good luck. And
That book Loot is in my library already. So, and I think it actually is kind of already popular because they had several copies available.
Yeah, it's very, very good. And except for you Canadians, you've already had your Thanksgiving. So Rita, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving like 2 weeks ago. So, but I hope you guys enjoy. Have a great holiday Thanksgiving, and I'll see you on the 28th, if not sooner at a book club. I mean,
I'll see you on the 11th.
All right. Yes,
And I'll
see you.
January.
Sharon, I just want to say I'm very upset with people that live in Wisconsin.
Well, you know what? I'm trying. So
Like,
Denise, so
I
I'm going to
was
be in
so
Boston.
excited.
I'm going to be in Grand Rapids, Michigan, Boston, Massachusetts, and they're trying to schedule that one back for January. So in Boston, I will be in Boston on the 17th of January, Grand Rapids, Michigan on the 18th, and we're trying to do Mystery to Me back or someplace in Wisconsin area on the 19th, that Friday. All right.
Cool.
That's what we're working on.
Cool.
All right, but Boston people, all your friends. I got to have 30 people there that are going to be mad at me. And Jean, I need a bunch of people from Philadelphia. Come on.
Oh, get
Well,
on.
are you secure with the date now? Because
Yes, it is the 17th of January.
okay, that's my son's birthday, but I'm still coming with all my friends.
Thank you. And the reason
who
they
else?
canceled it is because they canceled it on the 14th because they were
I
decorating
know.
for Christmas. I was like, come on, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Go.
But I will see you guys on the 17th of January in Boston in person. All
Yeah.
right. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank
Thank you. And good
Happy Thanksgiving.
congratulations.
Thank you.